and welcome to the First Watch podcast. My name is Drake. I will be your host for this podcast. I will be joined by a rotating group of friends who come together and discuss their first watches, whether they be from the 1920s, the 2020s, or anything in between. Now, this is going to be a spoiler-heavy podcast, so if you haven't watched the movie already, you could either do one of two things. You could either, one, join us for the conversation and decide whether or not you want to watch the movie for the very first time, or two, you can pause this podcast, go watch the movie for the first time, and then come back and join us for the conversation. Now, without further ado, sit back, relax, grab some popcorn, and enjoy the combo. Hello, and welcome back to the First Watch podcast. I am joined by my unofficial podcast co-host, Mr. Vikash. We are here to talk about Beast of No Nation, which is a movie that came out in 2015, and I believe, and you may have to correct me if I'm wrong here, is the first Netflix original on the service, and it's something that I've been putting off for a very long time. You had already seen it beforehand and actually brought it to my attention and said, hey, have you seen this yet? I had known about it for a while, just never really ticked it off the watch list. And you suggested that we do it as a kind of reverse first watch podcast and see what I thought of it. And boy, was this a movie!
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because this is the first Netflix original, but this is a movie that they bought.
Yeah.
I think the most expensive small movie they bought is Malcolm and Marie with John David Washington Zendaya. I think they paid 35 million, but this was 2015. They never made a movie for themselves. They were just licensing, movies from other people, and they bought this one for 12 million, and it kind of changed the landscape of awards and who Netflix was. And all these years later, like, it's a big difference. I think the difference you could have seen it as early as 2018 when Roma came out, because that was a Netflix produced original, and obviously Alfonso Cuarón did amazing work on that. They won Oscars for that, but that was not the case in 2015 for this one. So yeah, we'll talk about it as we get into the conversation, but this movie, I think it's a special movie in general, but it just kind of didn't get its due because the establishment of Hollywood wasn't ready for what Netflix was doling out. They didn't want to respect it, and now I'd argue that they kind of bend the knee to Netflix a little too much when it comes to the way, they pretty much don't want to have movies in theaters anymore. So, yeah. Well, how was it for you, though, this first watch? Because this is not an easy... You see, I literally apologized to Drake. I was like, yo, I'm sorry you had to watch this, because I was watching this and I was like, yo, this is a really intense movie. This is a capital, all caps, anti-war movie.
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion.
It's a very intense film. I kind of expected that because I knew what the subject matter was before going into it, and we had kind of talked about it a little bit before I watched it, kind of what the movie entailed, and and like I said, I had heard about this movie before, and I was kind of looking forward to the intensity of the movie because I wanted to feel something. I told you even like that day whenever I was texting you that like this is my shit. Like,
Yeah.
it is an intense movie. It is crazy, but like that feeling of just of getting emotion out of you based on what you see on the screen is what I crave. And that's
what
exactly
good
what I
movies
got.
do, though, in general, right?
Yeah.
I
And,
have a couple questions for you.
Yeah, go for
These are gonna be the political questions.
Yeah.
Is it possible to make an anti-war war movie?
It's
Meaning, like, the question is, aren't war movies
I
themselves like a glorification of war? Or what do you
I
think? What do you...
see. I hear this argument all the time on film Twitter about the glorification of war and how it's bad and
Yeah.
it propagandizes war and everything. And I struggle with agreeing with a lot of people saying that it glorifies war. I don't think it glorifies war because in order to
This one
glorify
doesn't.
war, no. Well, even most,
I'd argue 1917 glorifies war.
yeah, because they make it into this massive epic as opposed to a more grounded film. With this one, it definitely not glorified in any shape, form, or fashion. I think we misrepresent the word glorified or even glorification whenever we talk about films or talk about media in general, because it's thrown around a lot, and a lot of people
Yeah,
don't use it
the
correctly.
glorification of violence,
Yeah, it's thrown
quote
around a
unquote.
lot, but it's not like it's being paraded around and rooted for in a lot of these war films that they're talking about. The only ones I could really, you know, say that that's the case at the top of my head is maybe American Sniper a little bit.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even go as far as saying that it glorifies war. Maybe it is definitely propagandized war quite a bit and our involvement
it's
in war.
yeah. Because the problem is with American Sniper, because the conversation for this movie is inseparable for me, like
Yeah,
memory wise. Because I remember American Sniper comes out, Chris Kyle's story, it's like so well received, so well loved.
yeah,
And then this comes out the next year, gets nothing. It's like I compared to like Lady Bird and Edge of 17. I think both of those just as great in my opinion.
yeah,
And one got a lot of credit, one didn't. And I argue that if they call an American Sniper an anti-war movie, that it's not a war movie. It's not an anti-war movie because this is a like Beast of No Nation is an anti-war movie.
yeah,
American Sniper has glorification, even though it is Chris Kyle's story, and neither one of us is dissing on Chris Kyle one bit, you know.
yeah,
And what happened to him sucks, you
yeah,
know. That's terrible. And the war, this movie, Beast, it talks about it too. That the war, like war is bad. Period. You know, war is, you know, like the song says, "What is it good for? Absolutely nothing." Okay, and say it with me now. Okay, but this movie it shows you why it's bad and how no matter what happens afterwards, it never, you know, your mind is never fine afterwards, you know? And to this day, we have people with agendas, with political agendas of nonsense sending people to war for no reason. You know, I don't think there's any I can't argue a single war in the world at this time that is worth the violence upon anybody else, you know?
nope,
And the fact is that these things mess with people. See, the people who send them to war, they don't understand what this is, you
no.
know?
Nor do
And
they
this
care.
movie, it's like, it shows you exactly how this works, you know?
Yeah,
And it's like, it's a slippery slope of human behavior because you go from being a human to being inhuman. He says a beast in this movie, and that you become an animal in a sense because your humanity is removed when you go to do these things because you're not looking at who you're, you know, assaulting or whatever. You're just thinking that this is your objective. You're removing the human element from it, you know? And when there is a human element, they try to ravage it, right? We'll talk about that scene in the middle of the movie because it it's a lot. It really is, man.
yeah, yeah. As far as like anti-war movies go, this is probably the best one, and even just war movies in general to showcase the actual
It's this
cost of war. This is probably one of the best ones that I've seen to my knowledge that I've seen.
There's the Come and
I
See,
still need to see
which
Come and See.
I can't recommend to anybody because it is just as bad as this,
Yeah,
and it like, great movies, but just it puts such a, like, a downer on my heart, you know, like, I can
yeah.
never make one of these movies ever,
I think
even though I love, respect, and I can't even say I enjoy them, I respect them, you know?
I think Come and See is probably going to be one of those movies that I grab during the Criterion sale in July
Yeah,
because I definitely want to see that movie, but I want to see it in the best like format that I possibly can.
format, yeah, because it is a well-made, great, you know, it's an international cinema, another great movie.
Yeah.
This movie, even though it is an American movie, I think it does such a great job of respecting the culture, you know?
Yes.
You know the rapping, like, as soon as the movie begins and, like, throughout the movie, there's, like, kids rapping.
Hmm.
This is just, like, the kids that are in the movie, they kinda got together for casting, and they're just kinda playing around and messing around, and the director just recorded them rapping because you know, like, you just rap, you know, it's just like it's like kids like, singing their favorite song, right? And what that does in this movie, just from the opening, you feel such a love, such an intimacy to the culture right away, just from the music, from the way he frames it. Even though I think there's something beautiful about it that even though we do dive into war in this, we start with them in a place where they're kind of in a like in a buffer zone, and war is right there. It's right next to them. But even then, with everything happening, these kids are still kids, and throw it to Palestine. You see these videos of them showing like Finding Nemo and Ratatouille to kids, intense, because no matter what's going on outside, kids are still kids across the world. And, men can do the inhumane things, but these kids still need to live, and they need to live a good life. And this movie shows that you can take the most innocent person and put them into war, and they will become that. We're all a bad day away from doing what they're doing in this movie, becoming soldiers, pillaging villages, murdering people, sexually assaulting people, kill. There's a point in this movie where they're messing around, like, attention, and they're messing around, and casually he turns his head, and there's one of the other guys is killing somebody, and then he just turns around and he just keeps laughing. Like, you see where he starts, like our main character Agu starts, and where he ends up. And I think this movie is a lesson for people to take, that don't take this for granted. This could happen to you easily. This could happen to any of us. Because it's like, you see the propaganda of it all, right? Like how, as soon as he gets there, as soon as like the commandant's like group, his militia, essentially, they come upon him, right? You see the hierarchy of everybody, of like the precision of how they're working, like how they're addressing each other and all that sort of stuff. You're kind of just thrown into it in a good way. But we slowly realize that this is all just really good training. This is all kind of, though, they're literally shooting them with blanks to show that, like, you are now indestructible. Now no one can kill you, right?
Yeah, it's
And it's like
manipulation
the
with the
most
highest gun.
ultimate. Who this reminds me of, right?
Is that?
Hitler.
I mean, yeah.
I don't mean to say it in a bad way, but I see it is a bad way because of the sense that the commandant is very much like one of the worst characters of history, of any history, because these are the people who they're confident, they're charismatic, they're well spoken, they're well liked. But in reality, what they're doing and what they're using this skill for is ultimately war. It is crimes against humanity, period. That you're taking away humanity of the people that you're with, and you're using that to take away literal lives of other people, and doing much worse before that. You don't even want to listen to what they're saying. It's like, oh, I'm here to fix the bridges. Like, doesn't matter. You're with them. I'm going to kill you. And it's like, you're literally going to let someone die. Or like, you're not even listening to them. Like the humanity is gone. You're fully dehumanized when you think the objective is that, lives don't matter. Like, lives matter less than the objective. Right. So,
And you see how
and,
quick that happens too in this movie. Like, as
and
far
you
as
see what he does,
yeah,
right? He like, how much what does he ask the commandant? What does he ask Aku when he first sees him? Like, what happened, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he asks him like, oh, like my brother, my father, they were murdered,
They were killed. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then he's like, well, we're fighting against the people that killed your
Yeah,
father and brother.
he knew exactly what to pick towards to get him
and
on their
that's
side.
guy's legitimate skill.
Yeah,
This is what these people do.
and did it
They
so
prey on your
quickly.
insecurities.
Yeah,
In this country, when you don't have money and you want to get an education, you want to do something good with your life, people have to turn to being, to go to the military, and, after their service, they're able to go to school and do those things,
yeah,
I know multiple I say kids, but like my peers from school, people who had gone, served, and then came back, and they're like trying to become doctors and things like that. Like, I've seen the gamut of people, and it was just, they weren't dealt a good card in life, and that's what they did.
yeah.
And at any second, they can get roped into a war that has nothing to do with them.
Yeah, as we're seeing today, as we're seeing literally as we're
Yeah.
recording this, it
And
happens
when
all the
is it?
time.
And the war that we're speaking about right now, no matter when you listen to this, it is a war that could literally be stopped at this second.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
But it's just the ego of men and the agendas.
Yeah.
There's an agenda, and I don't mean to say just with America. I'm saying everybody has an agenda. To say that, you should proudly be, proud of your country and be ready to serve your country, no doubt. But also that, we're all humans no matter where we live. and we all matter more than the politics. That's all.
Yeah.
And it's just this movie really brings up a lot of stuff where it's like this is the worst humanity can like truly get to,
Well,
right?
it's even worse than the modern day wars because they and this is all based on a real war that happened in Africa that happened over
Yeah,
there. It is all based on real
it's
shit.
based on a it's based on real stuff, but it's not like a real story because this
Right,
is
right,
like
right, right,
it's a
right.
book that was written in the early 2000s that they adapted. But it's like it's such a great adaptation
Yeah.
that if you like this story just like from the author itself, like it's something that's like emotionally charged, emotionally true that you played from a kid's perspective.
Yeah.
And it's the loss of innocence that
Yeah.
happens in this movie that might be the biggest crime, isn't it?
And yeah, and a showcase of how dispensable people are, even at young ages when they're not even grown up enough to be their own people yet.
But isn't that what happens in this country too,
I
right?
mean,
You
yeah,
have
yeah, but
17, 18
but
year old,
this is
19-year-olds.
this is even worse than that because these kids are
Even
8,
worse, yeah.
9,
These are
10. These
yeah,
are these are barely elementary school kids who are running
yep,
around with RPGs, AK-47s, and machetes and said, "Alright, get
yep.
to work." Like, these are kids that are being manipulated and thrown around and used for a war that was complete and utter bullshit, as
An
most wars
agenda.
are. Yeah, and an agenda, and it just showcases just how terrible people can be to kids, not care about who kids are and how it affects them. This
I feel like see, it's like the movie uses kids, but I feel like it does like the kids they're the greatest example because of their innocence.
Yeah.
But ultimately this happens to adults also,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know? That anyone who is put into this situation that these children are put into, it is completely wrong to put them into the situation. But it's even worse that it is these kids that are going through it, right?
Yeah. And having a man who is definitely old enough to know better, or should be old enough to know better.
No, he does. He knows better.
Well, I
He
mean,
knows
clearly
better.
he
The
doesn't.
commandant.
Yeah, because
No, no,
he's
he knows better. It's just he is so evil. He is so
yeah,
inhuman himself that he knows to utilize these kids as soldiers. He knows how to weaponize the populace that's in front of him, right?
yeah,
How are you like in a very real sense, in a very inhumane, disgusting sense, how are you supposed to enact a war, take over villages, do all this stuff if you can't find an army?
yeah,
So with the right training, the right inundation, the right culture, environment, you can take the humanity away from people and then put them to work.
yeah,
And yeah, maybe at first they may be adverse to it, but once you put it into their skull enough, they're gonna do it. They're gonna subdue, and they might even enjoy it,
yeah.
right? And that's the scary thing, man. It is
I
horrifying.
think that's kind of what the commandant was trying to do. Was get these kids to kind of enjoy the war itself and the feeling they may get because he was even saying it's like, oh, it feels good, doesn't it? It feels good to get the people who are after you and get the people who killed your family and destroyed your homeland. It's good to get your revenge on them. And
It's like basic psychology. Like Pavlov's dog.
mhm,
You know
yeah,
about
yeah,
Pavlov's
Pavlov.
dog? Where it's like if you train someone enough, I'm not saying necessarily that, you're gonna ring a bell and they'll come coming, but like at least they'll know that once we do this and you think about this, this is like a rewarding thing for them, right? Which it seems it's even disgusting to say that this is like a rewarding thing to be taking someone's life or taking someone's livelihood or taking their village, And I feel like they don't even go all the way in the movie. I feel like they could have gone a whole lot worse, right?
They most certainly could have. Luckily, they like didn't. But I mean,
But there's enough. There's
yeah,
more than enough. There's more.
there's more than enough to showcase the issues that were going on. The commandant was played by Idris Elba.
Yeah. You know what's funny?
My god.
Yeah, he's amazing in this. And
Yeah.
I told Zach yesterday, I was like, "Yeah, we're shooting a Beast of No Nation tomorrow." He's like, "Oh, you've been writing for Idris for that movie since 2015." And he's like, "You about to be doing some Oscar campaigning?"
No,
Because
rightfully so.
I've talked about this for the last 10 years, literally, that 2015, Benicio del Toro, Sicario, Mark Rylance, Bridge of Spies, Tom Hardy, The Revenant. There's a few others that I'm probably missing in my head. You know, Stallone for Rocky. You could name half the guys in The Big Short, honestly. So many great, half the, some of the performances in Spotlight, some of the performances in Mad Max Fury Road, so many great performances in supporting actors across the board, no matter the genre. But the best one, the most disgusting one, the most lived in, true one to me has been this one. It's been The Commandant from Idris. Even Spielberg, who was on a awards chatter pod with Scott Feinberg. This is 2015. First time I ever heard Spielberg on a pod ever in general. But they're talking about the Oscars, and he's like, "Yeah, Idris for best support. Like, this is the guy. That performance is just another world." And he won at the Indie Spirits. He won, a SAG award. He won the BAFTA, I'm pretty sure. But the establishment wasn't ready for a Netflix movie to be, hyped yet, because it was the first one and whatever the politics are there. And he didn't get a nomination or a win for the Oscars. And one of their, other bigger crimes, I guess, even though Mark Rylance is great in Bridge of Spies, but yeah, this performance is an all-timer.
Was
Idris Stringer Bell, like, he's done everything
I was about to
under
say,
the
was
sun.
this his first like major role like that? I don't
Nah.
I don't
mean, like,
think so. I mean, not that I'd
he's
know of.
I think Idris has always been great,
Well, outside of Luther.
whether yeah.
Yeah.
What, you don't like Luther?
No, I just forgot it was 2010. I didn't realize
Well,
that
okay,
was that far back.
no, like The Wire, that's early 2000s. You
Yeah.
talk about he's even an American Gangster. He bites a
Yeah.
bullet with Denzel in that amazingly. He's
Yeah.
great in that. And he's always played interesting characters, but this movie right here, it ended up being the thing where after the director, Cary Fukunaga, he made True Detective Season 1, directed that whole thing, kind of changed the landscape of TV with, directing like 7-8 episodes of that show. And this was the next thing he did. And this is a $6 million movie, and they couldn't even get the money.
Yeah.
And ultimately, they're like, okay, like, Idris, we want to make this. He's like, I want to make this, but we need to get the money. So they put him on as a producer. They're like, he's confident in this too. So they gave him the money to go to Africa to make this movie. And it was like 35-day shoot, $6 million movie. And, problems after problems after problems, which usually happens with any movie, but, the cameraman, it gets injured.
Yeah.
Cary's like, oh, I'll DP this movie because I think that would be easier. It ends up being a much worse task, being the DP himself, having to, operate at some points himself. He gets malaria. The director gets malaria in Africa, which, take your malaria pills. I don't know what else to say, but it's like, it becomes like a whole thing. And even then, they come out with such a great movie.
And you're dealing with a bunch of
reminded me-
kids.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think all these kids, I think whenever I make movies, I think I'm always going to make sure that I have kids in my movies.
Yeah.
Just because, like, the environment is different,
Mhm.
And I'd prefer that environment to, like, some of the more brutal environments that we might have when kids aren't around.
Yeah.
Because, and plus you have shorter days and, just for everybody, a feasibility, like, I want people to at least be able to have one meal with their family or something,
Yeah.
But, it becomes a thing where you have kids around and these kids, they're doing some things that are very intense. And even then, I think, you see them, I think a lot of great directors, they have great child performances in their movies. And this one with Abraham Atta, like him, Striker, like a lot of these kids, they give fantastic performances in this movie. You know where Abraham was after this, right?
No, I have no idea.
Abraham is like the quaternary fourth string character in Spider-Man 1 and 2, Homecoming, and the other one. The debate team or whatever, the quiz bowl team that he's on.
Oh, right. In
The
Homecoming,
yeah. The one African kid in the school, like on the team, is Abraham.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think that's kind of the only thing he's been in after this, which is a crime because Indie Spirits.
No, yeah.
He won Best Actor or Breakthrough Actor, whatever it is.
He killed it as Agu. And I mean, just not to get off of Idris too much, I texted you right after I finished it. and I was like, I couldn't tell where Idris ended and the Commandant began, and then where the Commandant ended and where Idris began, because it's hard to tell the separation between the two, because he just melded into that role so well.
what he did when he was playing Stringer Bell?
Hmm.
He would always, whenever he was on set, he was pretty much speaking English, like American English, accent-wise. So even the people he was working with didn't realize that he was English, like he wasn't American.
Oh, for a while,
Like,
I mean, if I didn't know anything about Luther, like I didn't see Luther
yeah,
until until after I saw other things that he
yeah,
was in, and I'd only heard him do an American accent.
American accent,
So I
yeah.
thought he was American, and they're like, "No, he's from the fucking ends." And I'm like, oh, "Okay, he's from London." I'm like, "All right, cool."
Yeah. There's a great Key and Peele, like, sketch about, like, a dude playing, like a gangster in, like, Baltimore. It pretty much just, like it's based on him, and it's just they yell "cut," and he's like, "Oh, yeah, man, I'm doing this, I'm about to kill you, this," and then he's like, "Okay, so, like, what should I do with this take now?" And it's like, "Hold up, what you mean? What you mean?"
He goes
It's I
through
think
it
it's a
so
funny thing where
seamlessly.
it's like a lot of British actors like playing American superheroes, you know? Like Christian Bale playing Batman, like, come on. Henry Cavill playing Superman.
Even
But
like,
now we got David Corn Sweat. That's my
yeah,
man right there. I love that Superman.
yeah, Idris, like he killed it, man. He's one of those that like him as a
He
villain
doesn't
is
have to do
insane.
anything else, man.
No, he really
Like that,
doesn't.
yeah, you're right.
Him as a villain
Because
is crazy.
I think he does a lot of fun things and he's doing interesting work. He's even a DJ. Like Idris has always been the dude, but with this is like a crowning achievement movie. This is a crowning achievement role because it's so honest, so real. That's the thing about Benicio del Toro in Sicario. That that performance is so leveled, he doesn't even talk too much, and it's so like lively his performance because this is what a real person in that situation would be, and it's not about it being like like being in character all the time or something like that. That's not what he does, but it's like he was just like this is like some of the breed of what happens when your humanity is taken away. These people, and I don't mean it in a judgy way. I just mean it as like a character study that people exist like this. They might seem like they're nice, like I said, nice, charismatic, likable, but they're wolves in sheep's clothing, truly. That you might not notice it when they take away everything from you and you're left with nothing. And it takes these kids, it takes them all a long time to realize that he's nothing, he's feeble, he's a nothing, and we gave him everything.
Yeah,
There's something about ego that, once you're in these systems, you become the person who's like pushing it up,
yeah, yeah. Happens all the time.
less. And it's like, it's a very prevalent thing in our world right now that you say, oh, I'm just going to use Antarctica because I don't want to say the countries I'm thinking of. I love Antarctica, right? President Penguin is the best. He's my ride or die. Without President Penguin, my life would be nothing.
Yeah,
And this is something characteristic of many people in many different countries, right?
mhm,
So you're building a President Penguin, but you're also lowering yourself and making yourself subdued to whatever President Penguin is doing, right?
yeah.
And if President Penguin tells you to jump off a cliff,
You're
you're
gonna
gonna
do
jump
it.
off the cliff.
Yeah,
And that is becoming the blind understanding or ignorance that people are living within now. And these people, for the most part, is just like Agul, but not as extreme as him, but it's that they're taken advantage of in a precarious situation that they're in,
yeah,
that their lives, they might not have something in their lives that in a communal way that they have purpose within. And they find purpose within President Penguin. So they want to support Antarctica because they love Antarctica and they love President Penguin. So they're going to do anything to make sure President Penguin is still there, right?
yeah,
And that's why in this movie where there's a scene where they're told to stand down, the commandant's not going to have his operations anymore. So he essentially just gets a quote unquote prostitute to quote shoot him on accident,
yeah,
and then he essentially murders that woman and murders another woman. Like his people murder them,
yeah,
and they just run out of there, and they're just kind of on their own now because he wanted to hold that power still, right? that's not, that's very much a thing that happens in many other situations, right?
Yeah.
He saw that the power was slipping away, so he created a situation where he can keep his power.
Yep.
You can go to war, you can create another issue, you can cause distractions. These are all tools and the big one is to create hate.
Yeah.
That's the biggest one. Hate and divide, to say that these people are right and we're wrong and we have to rectify the situation. No one else is going to do it,
Yeah, and he would instill that as much as he could throughout the movie.
Exactly.
And it did it very early on in the movie as well. And it was kind of interesting to see him, when we're introduced to him, start out with, meeting Agu and trying to be this almost fatherly individual and trying to be a role model for Agu.
A real Mary Poppins.
Yeah, and then he starts to meld into this really, like, dark and twisted, and we start to see the true colors of the Commandant as the movie progresses on. And
But the characters don't.
yeah. Yeah, the characters
Even
but that's
okay,
because they're
look,
already snowed into the entire system. They've been manipulated enough and thrown around enough and brought into the fold enough to not see those things that are happening in front of them because they don't want to believe half the shit that they see.
and this I will no hate to Christianity, no hate to any cults. I actually hate to cults, but the cult, there's an Osho cult. They made a documentary about it in America called Wild Wild West, and same thing. They revered this man, and the man literally called himself God. Bhagwan is the word for God. It just literally means God, and they call him the Bhagwan. Like, terrible stuff. But like, he had his own cult. He's sleeping around with all these women. He's doing all this stuff. He has all this money from these people, right? But it was a cult. Like, he trained these people, to die for him, essentially. Jonestown, what a tragedy, And this goes, you talk about, the Catholic Church, talk about these pedophiles and how the system helped them get away with it. People, even though they might have been, been diddled, and I say that not as a joke, but just not trying to say the other word, they were kind of not fine with it, but they didn't really tell anybody about it, because it's like the system. Like, how are you going to use the name of God to do the worst things in the world? And people do this. What religion is? They do this.
Yeah.
They take advantage of people.
Yeah.
And that's one advantage you take. Their faith is a thing you can take advantage of.
Yeah, you've got sociopathic people who understand that those who are hurting in different ways are looking for some sort of answer, some sort of thing to flock to. So
Exactly.
they pick them apart. They seek them out, and they pick them up and say, I've got you. I can show you the way. I can show you how things are going to get better for yourself and how you can make things better for those around you. Yeah, I'm going to be your savior. I'm going to help you. And then
wake up, dead man.
Yeah. And then as soon as, you start to show more and more loyalty towards this individual who may or may not deserve that loyalty, they will start to exploit that as much as they can and try to take it as far as they can because now they feel that they have earned that. And
you know what the easy one is that people don't think about enough? Celebrity.
Oh yeah.
We're talking about Idris, but I'll talk about it for India. Amitabh Bachchan, Shah Rukh Khan, these are people, they have literal like balconies made so they can go outside and greet the people who sit outside and wait outside their house. They're people who are, and I say that you shouldn't, like, there's history of people. I've heard stories about this where people think of these people as gods. They see them as inhuman, not in the sense I'm talking about, this whole conversation, but rather that they're above humanity. They're better than us. And it's like, they're just like any other person. We all have the same potential with our lives, And to say that anybody is better than us, especially in these ways, is very extremely horrifying, Because they will use that, like, you know me, I have hope for humanity, but also you have to be very vigilant to where people will take advantage of you if you let them. And some people, they will yell at you like they were yelling at Aku. They'll tell you what to do. They'll train you up, and they'll convert you. They'll take you away from who you are. And I use the word convert very specifically because this is not something, it is a conversion because you're taking away the humanity, but you can get it back, right? Agu gets it back at the end of the movie, but you can tell the movie doesn't end there. What we end with is him having like a slim, like a glimmer of his humanity, a glimmer of like, the main thing about humanity is that no matter how many mistakes we make, we can still choose to be a human the next day. We can choose to live with humanity, to not do the wrong thing. That's why, I mean, yeah, you have sociopaths, you have serial killers, things like that. There's some people who might not change, but for the most part, we all have the potential to change. And I think, the system in America, system in most jails and systems in America, like punishment systems, they're not made to actually help people, I was just talking. I think I told you about this. I told somebody about it. I was talking to someone who had gotten out of jail like the day, like the day before I had talked to them, and the way he told me about it, the way like everybody. If you haven't seen Sing Sing, watch Sing Sing. It's one movie you could watch. 13th from American Ava DuVernay. It's on YouTube. Netflix put that on
Yeah,
YouTube,
that's a good one too.
and there's so many stories you can hear about the dehumanization even within that. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, another good one is
It really
Alabama
is.
Solution for that.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, so having Agu in this movie and being able to watch his progression throughout the movie is very interesting. Seeing him being introduced to the Commandant and then watching the Commandant find ways to slowly break him down into something that he is clearly not. Because we see Agu in the very beginning.
Submissible.
Yeah. We see him in the beginning as a kid with massive imagination. He is a child. He is someone who is very smart. He loves to play and hang out and be with his family, and
He's happy.
he's a very happy child. Once we see the army attack his family as they were laying wait in the village, waiting for everything to blow over, you see that to start to strip out of his eyes. Like you see the light kind of die in his eyes. And then the Commandant kind of puts a new light in his eyes, like a new light in his mind. And
Like that's the power
the
of
anger.
purpose.
Yeah. He
It's
provides
it,
him a new
the
sense of purpose for a different reason, which is
and
dark.
revenge movies, revenge stories. I think they're some of my favorite stories, but it's because it's the element of like it's something about a movie specifically that you can have a character who's been wronged so deeply and that the rectification of their story is this one task, right? That, Gladiator, you killed his wife, you killed his son. He is going to have his revenge in this life or the next. It is a very direct human story, that, there's a certain level of even principle within it, the way that they portrayed in that movie. And in this one, it's like there's no principle here, but they show you like a fake like system of principle that, oh, they killed your family, then we're gonna do that too, And it's like
And
two wrongs don't make one right. And I think even revenge stories, two wrongs don't make one right.
yeah.
But it's a movie. But this movie is very real.
Well,
And the fact is that it's crazy, man.
another big thing about the Commandant's relationship to Agu is he shows him basically how to get that revenge back.
Yeah.
He tells him, okay, we're going to get the revenge on the people that stole your family from you. And as soon as he learns how to do that, and he is shown the way to do that, he is kind of praised by the Commandant, which brings him closer into the inner circle of the Commandant and his...
It's also paternal, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to get to. But, like, he treats him as a son, even names him as basically tells him, you are basically my son now. And you can trust me, right? You can keep secrets, right? You can, you trust that I have your best intentions at heart. And then we get to the scene where he is in the office, the quote-unquote makeshift office that the commandant has in the newer
Yeah.
camp that they have. And it is very clear that, once he is given this wool hat that the commandant made, that he is now, Agu is now being taken advantage of. It was very clear based
Yeah.
on the way that he exits, the way that he is in pain, the way that he, you know,
The way he's
collapses
been
into
sexually
Stryker.
assaulted.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
wasn't gonna go too dark into it, but, it is
But,
very
like, yeah.
obvious. And the thing that really, I talked to you about this yesterday whenever we were recording for your podcast. The one thing that really stuck out to me in that scene, in that sequence, was him basically looking at the hat that he had on his head, and then looking around at all the other kids that also had these wool hats, a lot of them younger, most of them younger, and kind of formulating it in his head that those who had those hats probably had the
They've
exact
been
same thing happen to them. And that's when he starts to
well,
kind of
yeah, he
shift.
puts it together.
He starts to shift very slightly in his view of the commandant. You can see it in the way that he looks at the commandant throughout the rest of the movie from that point forward, that he doesn't necessarily trust him as much as he did up until that point. He's like, "Wait,
And
why
on
would
top
you
of that,
treat me this
the
way?"
drugs.
Yeah, the drugs too.
Man.
Like he started
Because
to
it's
do
like
the drug.
the way
He
that he like as soon as that scene kind of ends, we see him kind of go to the camp like with the other guys, and they see him spiraling, and it's a spiraling that they recognize, and they're just like, "Oh, have some of this brown brown. The brown brown will make you better."
Yeah.
You know what the brown brown was, right?
Yeah, it's fine.
No, the brown brown is like opium. It's
Oh,
heroin.
oh, 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 yeah, you're talking about the stuff that he sniffed, right?
No, no, they like put it on his skin too.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, they do have weed, but like, yeah, the main stuff that they put him on was the
Heroin.
brown brown. It
Yeah.
was heroin. It's heroin mixed with other stuff.
Yeah.
And opium, just there, Middle East. That's it's a thing where in war where they do use it,
Yeah.
because they're trying to escape from the pain. And how do you escape from this pain, And he gets into the drugs and he ends up they're invading a village and he literally breaks down and starts hugging a woman.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, this is my mom. Did you think that was his
No.
mom?
No.
Okay, I
Right
thought
away,
it was
I thought
both time
I knew
both
he was
times
going
I watched the
crazy.
movie, I thought it was his mom.
No, I knew
And I was like,
that it wasn't his mom because you could already see it, like, in her the way that she was acting. She was like,
yeah, yeah.
"Whoa, what's going on here?"
For like split second, I'm like, is that his mom?
Yeah.
And then she starts doing that. And I'm like, okay, that's not the mom. But
Yeah.
then what they do
It's
with the mother, what they do with the daughter in that scene, very, very messed up,
Yeah, very.
And it's the whole scene, that scene where, the colors change.
Yeah.
The scene I'm talking about?
Mhm.
That whole sequence just it's the good thing about this movie, there's a lot of dialogue, but like these moments, like the one we just talked about with the assault
Yeah, there's
and this
no
one,
dialogue needed.
there's not really like all the storytelling is very human, is very like, visually told that like we pick up the pieces very fast as to what's going on.
Yeah.
And a very, respects your audience movie in general.
Yeah.
And there's a way to make these things, and this is the right way to make an anti-war movie. I'll tell you that, where it's like you see what is taken away and then you see where he goes on this path, right? And I do like that we do end up where we end up with his character
Yeah.
and all the characters that, a couple of the guys like, this is all I know. I'm gonna go back to doing it. And while they choose to do that, Agu chooses to go play with the kids in the water,
Yeah.
And we
Very
would hope that,
reluctantly, but
the end of Hunger Games, the fourth movie, Mockingjay. At the end of that movie, I'm sure it's in the book too, but Katniss says like there's worse games to play,
Yeah.
And the Hunger Games is just a whole like whole metaphor for our society, for war and all these things, and the things that people are made to do, and ultimately it is the same thing that we don't want kids, the next generation, anybody to be able to have to do this, man. And you know what I think about? I think about Captain America 1. That's the one movie that stuck out to me because I think Captain America 1 is kind of underrated, but
One of my
it
favorites.
shows you the heart that like Steve Rogers has,
Yeah.
you know? And the scene with him and Stanley Tucci's character, like the doctor, where he's like, like this is a kid who's like scrawny and he weighs like a stone and nothing,
Yeah.
and he still wants to fight. He still wants to be a hero. And what it's not about and it goes to the grenade scene in the first one
Mhm.
where they pop a grenade and everyone runs and he's the only one who jumps and tries to like, save everybody's lives.
Yeah.
And that's what a hero is, not because he's putting his life on the line, but for the fact that he realizes that there's an altruism there, that it's not me that only needs to be safe, that the job is to be what we need to be,
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the end of The Dark Knight, is that, well, that's what a hero is.
Yeah.
And in the war part of this, the reason why I bring it up is Captain America Civil War. There's a very Iron Man versus Tony conversation.
Oh yeah.
I've always been Team Cap.
Yeah.
Oh, or sorry, I'm not Iron Man and Tony, Iron Man and Captain America.
Yeah.
And I've always been on Steve's side since day one. Because the fact was, in that movie, the political conversation is that he wants to go save lives. And if you have to worry about a country and their politics as to like, oh, I have to wait for you to tell me to go and help people to like save people,
Yeah.
that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Talk about Superman with Batavia, whatever it is. They're like, oh, like you threatened the whatever, the president, this, that, and the other. It's like, yeah, because he was going to go and invade someone. Like, I'm not like, yeah, I might be a symbol for America, but I'm also the symbol for humanity,
Yeah.
And he's the same thing. Superman is an inhuman. He is not. He's an alien, but he's being the most human in that situation, and that's why these stories work, And that's the thing about war. There's no agenda. There's agendas. The whole fact is that it's all untruth.
Yeah.
None of it is true. You're saying we're going. It's a pretty stated thing that they went after 9/11 to go find weapons of mass destruction when there weren't any.
Well, that was their claim, but
But but that's what I'm saying. They built it on a whole thing of
yeah, it was all
untruth.
bullshit.
And there's a movie called Green Zone, Paul Greengrass, 2010, Matt Damon. If anybody's never seen it, most people haven't. It's a fun watch. I want to say it's a fun watch, but it is a fun watch because it's Paul Greengrass. That's like saying United 93 is a fun movie. It's not. But it's like, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Like it is, it's a movie about a very scary, terrible situation. Zero Dark 30, same thing. Thrilling movie, but it's about a scary, terrible situation that is very real.
Yeah.
And it's not like she shied away from. These people are literally waterboarding people trying to figure out the truth as to where this character is. I'm not going to say his name. I don't want to get this flag, man.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I think never mind. I'll talk to you. Whatever. It's a commentary pod thing where we say a line in that movie a lot of the time.
Yeah.
The last time you saw that person.
Yeah. I think this, Beast in No Nation is one of those movies that it does a good job of showcasing the grittiness of these situations without it doesn't hold your hand. The writing in it is not hokey because a lot of.
But it's also not gratuitous.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's not. The writing doesn't hold your hand, which in a lot of cases for a lot of movies like this, it usually will to make it easier to spoon feed to people. But I like the fact that it doesn't do that because it forces you to watch all of these things unfold in front of you and have these just really gritty, dark feelings about the things that happened because this stuff does happen. Obviously, this happened. This movie came out
and
years
it happens
after
in silence, right?
Yeah, it happens in silence. Not everyone knows about the wars that are happening in other countries because we don't really care. We know more now because it's everywhere. I mean, we see it more now because it gets more eyeballs, and that's how these news agencies pay their bills, is by getting more eyeballs. So they're just going to keep throwing it down our faces. But as far as our actual care for it, we don't really give a shit. Not truthfully.
You're talking about yeah. That's the thing. Ultimately, and people can call me ignorant if they really feel like it, but the truth is that if we can't change the situation, it doesn't really matter to us. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that we don't empathize and understand and you feel bad for whatever is happening. But ultimately, we are humans, and it's never been in our biology to say that we need to know everything everywhere that is happening.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, yeah, it's terrible that things happen, but it's also that, like, how are you supposed to live as a human if you don't live as a human, you know?
Yeah.
If I sit there and watch the news all day and look at what they're showing us of these people doing this, if I watch Beasts of No Nation for 100 days, I might start to be a different human being
Yeah.
because I don't believe in humanity anymore,
Yeah.
you know? And it's, you get what I mean, that these things will remove your humanity. And we can't let that happen. We choose to not let that happen, you know?
Mm.
So yeah, I don't really watch the news. Like if something happens, people tell me about it, you know, but it's not built for us.
I
So
think that's why
these things,
I think that's why these movies are best, because there are a lot of people that don't watch the news, right? But do see things like Beast of No Nation that allows you to not necessarily see real violence, but a simulation of what is actually going on. And
emotionally, it is the truth
yeah,
though,
yeah,
right?
emotionally it is the truth, because you gravitate towards these characters that you're seeing on your screen. You know, you care about Stryker, you care about Agu, you care about all these kids who are put in this terrible situation. But
How
you
do you compare this to like a Zone of Interest?
I mean, Zone of Interest is compelling in its own way,
These
for a
and that's
different
an
reason.
anti-war movie in a
Well,
different
yeah,
sense
yeah,
also,
yeah,
right?
100%. But there's different ways that Zone of Interest is compelling versus how Beast of No Nation is compelling, right? We don't really see anything coming from wars in Africa at all. We've seen
True.
everything and anything on the Holocaust, on Germany, on World War II in general. We have had an overabundance of media on World War II. So we're not as
And
connected to it.
The Great War, like
Yeah.
World War One, we have enough. Like I haven't even watched the new All Quiet on the
Western
Western
Front,
Front.
yeah, the Netflix
I
one.
think it's a great story. I've seen the old, the OG movie. I've read the book in school.
Yeah.
I have no desire to watch the new one.
Yeah, and
You know, just
I think it's
I
because
it doesn't interest me.
yeah, because we don't really see anything on Africa and their plights and how things have gone on in Africa through the military and the way that they treat their people, the government treats, many governments treat their people.
But
We have a
ultimately, it
new
was the
connection
fact
to this.
that yeah, exactly. And it's like that. And the thing is that is a human problem ultimately, right?
Yeah.
That what is the guy at about 60% through the movie, they kind of have a reprieve. And I always love when movies do this. They kind of slow down for 10 minutes. I love it. And they have a conversation that is important to the movie, like a narrative conversation where he's like, you don't need to be doing this anymore. Like we are worried about the look of the whole world is looking at us now, and we want to make sure that we're
Yeah,
more
after the UN
palatable
goes in
in a
there.
sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the UN showed
And
up and was kind of showcasing a lot of things, or capturing a lot of the footage of the war that was going on in the country at the time.
I will say they don't do anything. They
Yeah, they
really
don't.
don't.
They don't.
They can say they get it. They get together in their buildings and act like they're doing something. You're not doing anything, you
Yeah.
know? If you really care about people, go be about it. Go there.
Yeah,
Do it.
they
You know?
won't.
You don't need to get together in an assembly to get it done. An assembly ain't doing squat.
No.
I'm not saying, you can't get stuff done when you have like a different like regime or something, like a control of a country. Those things do matter. But
Yeah, but even then, who's
even
putting those
then,
in place? Like,
exactly.
a lot of
You're right.
times it's
You're right.
us that's putting them in
Venezuela, the
place.
CIA, you're
Yeah,
right.
like, it's not
Iran.
yeah, it's all bullshit. Like, it's all smoke and mirrors. Like, as some as we're sitting here
And
right
that's what
now,
happens
what
in
is happening
Africa,
in
that
Iran.
corporations take corporations or political agendas, they take a control of the countries,
Yeah.
essentially. And that the countries get pillaged, the people get nothing. And I think people don't have a good vision of Africa in general nowadays. You
Yeah.
know, people think Africa is just a bunch of people who they're living in nothing. And
But
that's
that's
not what
also
Africa
all
is, you
we
know?
see. Like, as someone
Exactly.
who is American, who lives in America his entire life, our only depiction of Africa is a third world country, just like that of India is a third world country.
Yeah. That's true. There's a woman in Africa, a young girl. she has like I think like 100,000, probably a lot more followers, and her whole page is just dedicated to, oh, we have water here. How are we going to like how are we going to do this like menial task in Africa, right?
Yeah.
And she is essentially just making fun of what people see Africa as.
Yeah.
But she's also showing at the same time, like, we have everything we need here. You know, I think she's Kenyan.
Yeah.
But like it just makes me laugh because it is her comedy is hilarious in the first place because it's such like a good take, but it's also a great thing that she's showing what Africa actually is like,
Yeah.
you know? And I know plenty of Indo Africans also, you know? I know people who are in, you know, Uganda, Kenya. They speak even a little bit Swahili and all that in Kenya, South Africa. So, and then I know actual South Africans, not the good ones, you know, these ones. And then, you know, I think it's such a, like, Africa doesn't get enough love. And I think India in the same way doesn't get enough love because these places are seen as being backwards or quote unquote third world or whatever.
Yeah.
Third world is a Western term put on the countries. Very much, it feels like a term like a UN would make up. You know,
Yeah.
that this is the first world, this is the second class, this is third. It's like
Well,
who
that
are
was the
you to
whole
be
point.
telling us what it is?
The whole point was to divide, the world up as much as in a weird fiscal way to kind of show
Yeah.
who has a higher GDP.
Who holds the power? Quote
Yeah.
unquote.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
economic power.
Which is the money. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Even though Africa, trillions upon trillions upon trillions was pillaged. I know the number for India is 43 trillion. It's much worse than that in Africa altogether, because, like, I throw it back to, what is it, Lawrence Fishburne? I forgot the movie's name, but it's like the heart of the world. Like the world started in Africa. Like the resources, you call the motherland, the mother of Earth. The resources came from Africa. What resources are we getting from in America? We are getting some, but not like that. So it's a very interesting thing, man. That this movie, see, you know what the thing is? Good movies, they spark good conversation. I was talking to you. That's why movies have to have themes. People say movies aren't politics. Movies are politics, not the politics of like whatever the nonsense, but the sociology of humans. There's things that we all deal with, that we all go through, that movies talk about, right? That we all have the potential to go through this.
Yeah.
Godzilla -1, even though it's like such a airy, wavy thing of like, there's a Godzilla monster, still feels like a story that we could all go through, that we're all ready to defend our place where we live, but we don't have the resources to do so. We are supposed to be guaranteed help, but the help is not coming. No one is coming to save us. What do we do in this situation? That feels like such a underdog story, but also a human story. And it's like you're rooting for them to. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. I'm like, you're rooting for them to get rid of this evil, get rid of this hate, this nuclear power that Godzilla exists as a country.
Yeah.
So that's powerful filmmaking. This is the same level of filmmaking for me. That Carrie is just a dude. I don't want to downgrade the work he does, but like he's a dude who went to NYU.
Yeah.
He's an American, and I mean I think he's Latinx. He is Latin also, but I think he might be Japanese too. But like, he's not African.
Yeah.
Right. It reminds me of a Detroit 2017 movie directed by Catherine Bigelow.
Oh, that's got
and
fuck. What's his name? Finn, right?
Who's in the movie?
Yeah.
Will Poulter's in that movie. John Boyega.
Yeah, that's it. John
Stack
Boyega.
cast on that
I was
movie.
like, I know that somebody like big was in that
Yeah.
movie, and I forgot his name.
There's so many great actors in that movie. Fantastic movie.
Yeah.
But the issue with the movie was that, quote unquote, they're like, why is Catherine Bigelow making a movie about black people? Which she made the movie out of like a resonance that she's like, oh, what happened in, why am I forgetting? It was not Flint. I don't know why I'm forgetting it. It's a big thing that happened in 2016,
I'm
when
guessing
it came to
it's Flint. Yeah, if you're talking about the pollution of water, it was Flint, Michigan.
No, it wasn't Flint. It was about the kid who he was murdered by the cop after he like stole a pack of Swishers.
Oh yeah, there was also, or no. Yes,
You know who I'm talking about.
That was in Michigan, I believe.
That was okay. Yeah. So
I can't remember
the
what
story
city.
of Detroit. But Detroit takes place in the 60s in the same sort of situation where there's like rioting going on.
Yeah.
And what the police brutally did and how they're like, they literally shack up a bunch of people into a house who are all innocent and they're trying to pin essentially a murder on a person. And Will Poulter plays one of the most, on the same level as the Commandant, one of the most inhuman, disgusting characters I've ever seen. And Will is also in that same place as Idris, where I'm like, if they never did a great performance again, I'm good because he's already delivered one of the best I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
That's another, these guys, man. That's a recommendation for this pod.
Yeah.
A quote unquote companion piece of like a horrifying movie. I think Beast of No Nation is a real horror movie to me.
Yeah.
Detroit is also another horror movie. It's a very intense movie. It grips you to the end because you're so horrified for the characters in the movie, you know? Especially, I think John Boyega, by the end of the movie, I was sweating in the theater. I was like, what's going to happen? And what's going to happen? And yeah, these stories, they happen. They have happened. And sometimes they're not you know how they make these movies. Sometimes they're based on a true story. I think you have to take liberties within real stories to tell them at times. But as long as the emotion behind it is the truth, then it works. You know what? Iron Claw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The Iron
One of
Claw.
my favorites.
They don't talk about a whole sibling that they have.
Well, they did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Whoever's still alive, whichever Von Erich brother is still alive, he was like,
yeah.
yo, it's probably best if we don't include another one on top of the already.
What he said was, he was just like, I just want people to know that I love my brothers.
Yeah.
You know? And the movie so beautifully proves that, you know, that love that those brothers had.
Yeah.
And that no matter what happened to them, you know, with their parentage and everything else, that ultimately they did love each other and that wasn't the problem there, you know, with them. And it was a tragedy what happens to those brothers. And that's a great story, human story, just like these, you know, because that's one of those things where like, what you going to do in your house? What are you going to do with those kids that you know, whether they're your kids or not your kids? Like, human stories, man. I wonder why we talk about character-driven movies, man.
Hey, it's because they're important.
Now we got to talk about Captain America because I was talking about.
At the time that we're recording this is actually the day of the Oscars, which will lead us right into.
It's the day that one battle after another wins for the Oscars.
I'm kind of hoping that one battle wins for Best Picture. I doubt it's going to happen.
Wait, what wins?
That one battle wins for Best for Best Picture.
Oh, I think it will.
I doubt
they
that
won
it will.
PGA. They're winning.
Yeah, maybe, but I doubt it. Based off of after all the Sinners discourse and stuff that has happened over the past couple weeks, I think it's going to be more in their favor than it is in PTA's favor. But
it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Beast of No Nation goes, however, there weren't many awards that it was given as far as or any awards that was given for the Oscars, which is kind of sad.
So you told me you just watched the movie, right?
Yeah,
for the first time.
Yeah.
You tell me, is this an Oscar-worthy movie in any aspect?
Yeah.
Run a little Cinema Pursuit on you.
No, yeah,
any
yeah,
aspect.
Yeah,
what do you think? Yeah. Just off the jump, what would you nominate?
Well, that's kind of what the whole conversation is for this Oscars portion of the podcast is. Like, obviously, it got 0 nominations, which is very strange. It got SAG Award nominations and stuff like that. Easiest one for me would be Idris getting a supporting actor nom, obviously.
Yeah.
Because he is the movie for me. He is the crux of the movie. I would even throw in Abraham as a supporting
best lead.
Well, yeah, best lead. Yeah, because he is the lead of that movie. I would throw him in a best lead. I know that he probably wouldn't win, but at least to be nominated would be fantastic because I think it would at least be deserved. As far as directing goes, maybe, but I don't know if it would really get much of a directing play either.
Because this is 2015. It was a pretty good year. Pretty good year, meaning this is the Mad Max year.
Yeah.
Revenant, Spotlight. There's a lot of great movies out this year, but it's not like this is a lesser movie. This movie is just as good as those.
Yeah.
So
100%.
This is a movie that was on level playing field that was just not nominated because it was Netflix. Yeah. Literally. That's what it was. And the fact was that he should have had it. He really should have.
Yeah.
And it is what it is, like everybody knows it, but we're not like we're talking on Oscar night right now.
Yeah.
If you don't win, it's fine. If you do win, that's awesome. But also there's a whole bunch of people who never even got nominated,
Mhm.
and those people are still doing amazing work also,
Yeah.
Like Nick was telling me yesterday, he's like, oh, like One Battle After Another, Sinners, this, that, and the other. Yeah, sure. But like, what about Eddington? Did Eddington even get any nominations?
Nope.
Like, that's one of my favorite movies of the year.
Yeah.
It is one of my favorites. And talk about a Materialist. That's a movie that I feel like I loved. It's just as great as the other ones. It's not getting any love. It's not their regular fare, and it didn't have the politics and this campaign stuff, this nonsense. You know who started this nonsense, right?
No.
Harvey Weinstein started it.
That tracks.
Because in a year where a different movie should have won, Shakespeare in Love won, because he started weaponizing people. He started weaponizing this event to be like, hey, I can make sure that I win. I can game the system.
Yeah.
And of course, it was an inhuman human being that did that.
Yeah.
So
Which tracks,
he's
obviously.
you know where Michael Shannon was when he got nominated? He was sitting in a bar watching it. He's not. He doesn't even want to go because it's like it is so inhuman to go and have to like campaign and do all this stuff. It really is,
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I understand to some extent that you want to champion your movie, especially like a movie like Sinners, where you're so financially, spiritually, culturally invested. You should go and do it, But, and then, I mean, there's a narrative behind PTA's story also, right? That the man, he's been killing it for, as long as I've been alive, he's been killing it.
Yeah.
And he just never got his love. And this is like, he's winning for one battle, but he's winning for, for every other one. He's winning for Phantom Thread. He's winning for Licorice. He's winning for everything else, And it's not like it's not deserved. It's not like it wasn't already deserved, These awards they're good, like, a little chip in your hat, but they're not the hat, The hat is the work. The hat is the process to be like, hey, we made this, Someone like Felentria Martin, the production designer on One Battle, I was looking at hers. She, as a Latin woman, she might win production design tonight.
Yeah.
And she did great work. Like these are like even the production design in something like Beasts, the production design is insane. How do you find these locations? It is a nightmare. The scene, the only wide, like true wide shots we get in the movie is after something happens to Agu, like the main thing happens to Agu's character and he gets lost in the forest. And those wides, there's about 4 or 5 of them. He plays them consistently just for that scene, just to make you feel the space of how alone he's become visually. And that stuff doesn't come easy, man. Especially going somewhere where they might not have the the system essentially of like making movies of like some sort of structure. It's hard to get the movies made there, and you should go and make movies in those places. That's needed, very needed. That's why The Revenant got so much love this same year.
Yeah.
People were like, oh, they went to to nowhere and they made this movie and it looks amazing and they did a great job, across the board. I think George Miller did it, and I think he did it better. And I stand on business about that. All the, 11 years later, I would rather, like Mad Max is very much one of my favorite movies. Fury Road is one of my favorite movies ever. It always will be because it's never been done again.
Yeah.
It never, even like George did it again, but he did it differently because he knows he can't top that. You have to tell the human story now, and he stood on business about that too.
Well, to stay with the Oscars and Beast, yeah. What else would you give it a nomination for? I'm sure directing would be up there. Production design,
besides
obviously.
acting, costuming,
yeah.
Because I don't know. I checked. I had to check yesterday or the day before. One Battle is not nominated for costuming,
which is wild.
And I think the problem for me, I stand on business about this. The fact is that movies that take place in the 2000s or afterwards, they don't get enough credit for their costuming.
Mm-hmm.
Because to say that you have good costuming, I think most movies that take place today have bad costuming.
Yeah.
Because it feels like you went to TJ Maxx and bought a bunch of clothes and put them on people, and that's the character.
It does.
And that's not a bad thing. That is a job, and that's what they do. But it's also the fact that you need, like, your clothes are your character, right?
Yeah.
You're wearing a t-shirt. I'm wearing this shirt, you know?
Yeah.
There's something to be said about that. I have these pens sitting in my shirt, right?
Yeah.
It's just because it's a thing I do because I'm it's a part of my character to have my pens, my headphones, my phone, and like maybe something else in my pocket, my keys or something like that. That is my character,
Yeah.
right? Why do I wear shorts? Because I overheat. I wear this, like, no, but you get what I mean,
Oh,
that
yeah.
there's such a reason behind your clothing, you know? And that should have brevity. It should have a lot of love. And I think the characterness of like the characteristics of the clothes in one battle, the characteristics of the clothes throughout one Beast of No Nation, it's impeccable, you know, because it feels real.
Yeah.
You know, that's the main thing when it comes to the beginning of the movie. We see everybody there in their buffer zone. I wouldn't even call it a village, like their buffer zone. Everyone just feels of time, of period.
Mhm.
And then the clothes change.
Yeah.
The look changes as we go through the movie. You see when they have the reprieve, the 10 minutes I was talking about, and you see the quote unquote the general,
Mhm.
right? The master. You see what he's wearing. You see what it's like there's so much detail when it comes to clothing that matters, you know? And you could throw it to the other way, the design aspect. Talk about La La Land, you know? Your colors have to complement the visuals of your story also, right?
Yeah.
And I think the clothes in this movie, they really complement this. You know, this movie's not shot on film, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Like there's a few points in the movies where I'm like, are they shooting on film in this movie?
Yeah.
But it's like the way that they shot it, the way they lit it, like color corrected the movie, color timing, it very much feels like a 70s movie in a great way.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
because they had to
And
match the
it's
bleakness of not only the tone of the
yeah.
movie, but they had to also kind of match the bleakness of the area that they were in, because they were
Exactly.
not
Even though it's a
necessarily in the
very
best.
vibrant place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But they were also putting themselves in a like a hole in the ground kind of area. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't the best area to put themselves.
And that speaks to the filmmaking because
Yeah.
a different filmmaker might do the sepia tone filter. You know how the joke now is that, you know, whenever it's like Narcos or something like that, you know, Latin America,
They
there's
turn it
drugs being
yellow.
everywhere. They turn it
Yeah.
yellow, like that sort of thing. Or at least he didn't do that, you know.
Yeah.
And I do sing his praise, you know, like for the work he's done, like No Time to Die.
Mhm.
Linus Sandgren shot that. He's shooting. I think is he shooting the next Batman?
That
No, he shot
no.
Dune 3. He shot Dune 3.
Yeah.
Linus, he's also done, you know, La La Land. You
Yeah.
know, his colors are great. The colors of No Time to Die are impeccable, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, it takes a lot of work to do this behind the camera, but ultimately, you know, it matters. And costuming, it doesn't get enough credit.
Mm,
I think that's the problem. You talk about sound. Sound doesn't even get enough credit,
no,
you
it
know?
doesn't.
Because that's what I was talking about. Like he understood that you needed to like him recording these kids rapping. I thought that was it's such a great like interlude through the movie whenever they are rapping because it still reminds you that these kids are kids,
Mhm.
right? You know, like there's still a life there, and innocence there, and joy there that exists no matter even if they are inhuman at this point.
Yeah.
That they're doing terrible things, they're still humans. They're still people with lives, with feelings, with love for art. You know, and that's the crazy part. That's what the work is. But they didn't give credit to it.
No, they didn't.
They
And
didn't.
kind of sad, but I'm hoping that
But that's the
as
thing.
time goes
Criterion
on,
is a credit though, right?
yeah. I'm hoping as time goes on that more
They put it
people.
on disc.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even know they put it on disc.
Oh,
They
okay.
did.
No, it was a big win for me. It was a big vindication for me. I'm like, yeah, y'all recognize the game finally 10 years later.
Yeah, because like all of the Netflix stuff hardly ever gets put. It never gets put on anything, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that I'm glad that it is on disc. That means I'm gonna have to go hunting for it now to go find it.
I'm pretty sure I watched it in 720p probably
Yeah.
streaming.
Yeah.
In 2015.
Yeah.
I literally the bed I'm sitting next to, I still remember watching it on my laptop.
Mhm.
I remember watching it because whatever happens, a striker happens, you know?
Yeah.
I started crying and I had to take
Oh
a
yeah,
bed. I really did. It
I
was
was
so the
pretty
movie
close.
was so much. I started crying and I was just like it was just it was a lot.
Yeah.
This movie is a lot, but in a good way it's a lot.
Yeah. You definitely walk away from it just like feeling kind of down, but also really starting to think about, the place that you're in, the fact that it could be worse. Like there's a lot of other conversations that you could have with yourself about this film and yeah, just
How
the
it
significance of it.
truly relates. Like this is something that happens and it continues to happen in our world.
Yeah.
And like I said, I throw it back to that song. What is
What is
like war
yeah.
is not good for anything.
Yeah. No.
You people they say that war is good for innovation, that it's good for this, it's good for that. But as people innovate, people do it otherwise.
Yeah.
It's like saying the arm race, pushed us. I mean, yeah, sure, it pushed us, but you could have pushed yourself in the first place.
Yeah.
Like you had to put someone else down you had to spite somebody else to become a better human being. That's like say, hey, like like I lost it. Like it's like I broke up with somebody and that heartbreak made me lose 100 pounds. Like something
Yeah.
like that. It's like the spitefulness made you better. Like I think we need some better motivation.
Sometimes we do. Yeah. I think this is just a conversation who's just being like, hey, go see this movie. I know a lot of people have not seen this movie. I know there have been quite a few film fans that have seen this movie, but I don't think the general population has. And especially
And it's
now,
available.
yeah, it is. It's
It's
readily
on
available. It's
Netflix.
always been available for the past 10 years, and I think now more than ever is a perfect time to go watch this film, especially as things continue to unfold in the world around us. This is the best
Wars
time
are
to go see
always
it.
gonna be I wouldn't say wars are always gonna be
Well, they're
happening,
evergreen. Yeah,
but
war is evergreen.
war is evergreen because it's a good opportunity to take advantage of people.
Yeah.
When it, I see the only wars that are worth fighting are the ones where you have no choice.
Yeah.
The ones where if you don't pick up arms, humanity is going to be gone. I think that's why this is such a Vikash take right here. It's like Independence Day, like the 1996 Independence Day,
Yeah.
where people they might roast the movie, whatever. I love that movie.
Mm.
It's a namesake 96 movie, a July 96 movie. Very deep to me in the sense that at the end of that movie, it takes aliens invading Earth to finally get everybody on page across the world to like kick some behind that humanity's on one page for once,
Yeah.
And there's something cool about that, where it's like you kind of have to put the trust in one another to do the right thing. And that's the right thing to do is to preserve what we are and preserve where we are. But hey, that might be a little too much. Like that movie, okay, Independence Day, if you like, I swear, like people, when it gets hot, when it gets to July, turn it on. It's such a fun movie.
It is.
People, they're like, oh, it's not like it's the logic. No, that you're talking about turn your brain off movies.
Yeah.
That's a turn
Yeah.
your brain off movie,
100%.
and a great one at that.
100%.
The effects and all that, whatever. I don't know. See, I didn't expect that turn today.
Is there any way that you would watch this movie again? I mean, we've already watched this for the sake of this
I
podcast.
think
Is this one that you would revisit? Because it is rather dark,
it's one.
but
I would only revisit this if it was like, oh, like significant other hasn't seen this movie
Yeah.
and they need to watch it.
Yeah.
Or it would be like something where I don't really show people movies too much anymore. But I would think in my head that maybe if I'm making a movie like this, I would have to show it to them.
Yeah.
I think I would show it to people just because like this is what we need, this human element of children, that the kids have the potentiality to be full on human character level leads, and there's a way to do this. This is the way that Carrie did it with this movie, with narration and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Technically,
Yeah.
and emotionally, you feel that to your chest. You feel it in your core, in your humanity with what the effect is of Agu's story.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a movie where even if you don't talk about it, like you still need to watch it. I think everybody needs to watch this one. If you can stomach it, watch it.
Yeah, I don't
Maybe pause a little bit.
even if you don't think this is one of those movies that is up your alley or that you can quote unquote stomach it, I would still say
This
to
is
watch
not a war
it.
movie in that sense.
Yeah.
This is not like as my mom would say, it's not a Mardar movie. It's not a shoot 'em up movie.
Yeah, no. It's a
That's not what this is.
no, it's not that. It is a necessary movie, in my opinion.
And it's a necessary movie because it's like we just talked about I Swear. I Swear is like it's a page of humanity that we need to know.
Yeah.
Beast of No Nation is also another page of humanity that we need to know. It's a dark face of humanity that we need to know that, hey, be vigilant because you could fall into the same echo chamber that Agu was taken advantage of.
Yep.
And what happens to him could happen to me. And I don't want to, go down years down the line and be like, hey, did I really need to go through that? And now, like, it's inseparable to me that I went through this,
Yeah.
So, yeah, just check it out. You never, like, this movie will give you an emotional response.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
you said, Drake,
100%.
we always look for movies that give us good emotional response, whether it's a positive or negative one in that sense. But this is one of those ones that people should watch. And yeah, I will be revisiting. See, that's the thing. He made True Detective. He made this. He made No Time to Die. So it's like, yeah, I might go with the two other fun ones, but I still have to come back to this one. I haven't stopped talking about this movie for 10 years,
Yeah.
11 years. I'm not going to stop now.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about
Yeah, of
this one because
course.
it is an important one.
Yeah.
You see why I told you to watch
Oh,
it,
yeah,
but then
yeah.
I was like, oh,
No,
this kind of deep.
It is deep, but it's like I was saying to you even the day that I watched it a couple days ago. Like it is a necessary watch for me. It's kind of right up my
yeah.
alley in the fact that it gives me perspective on other things that I'm not necessarily privy to. So I like that. Like especially as someone who
we need more African movies.
Yeah, we do.
America meaning like Hollywood, they need to go to Africa more. How about that?
I want to see higher production movies from Africa within their own lens so that we can
The Nigerians be cooking.
Yeah. I need to see
They
more
be
movies
cooking with
from
nothing. They be Tony Stark in the cave and they still cooking.
Yeah.
Genuine. These kids, they're talented, man. They really are. You're right. We do need to see more African, film from African filmmakers.
Because I don't know of many at all. Now, granted, that's probably because I'm not looking as hard, but
no, but like just in general, I think I can name maybe a couple. But even then, they're like they're like first gen to Europe.
Yeah.
And someone like Matty Diop, someone like that. And even then, we need more stories told. We need severely more stories told. And because at the end of the day, they don't have to be war movies. They can just be human stories. And that'll be that'll be interesting. It'll be compelling. It'll be something we haven't seen.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
The sky's the limit if you actually, invest in it.
Yeah.
So,
well, if anyone who is listening to this, if anyone who is listening to this ends up watching Beast in the Nation, let us know how you feel about the movie. If you like the movie, if you don't like the movie, let us know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter.
Let me know if you don't like this. If you don't like this movie, hit me up.
Yeah.
Don't hit him, Drake. Hit me up.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it.
You can hit both of us up and tell us what you think about Beast in the Nation. We could talk about it for a little bit. I like this movie a lot. There's a lot going on with this movie, but there's a lot to like as well. And I definitely suggest that anyone who hasn't seen it yet already goes and does that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm glad that you came on and showed me. Well, not really showed me, but convinced me to finally watch this movie. And I'm grateful for that because I probably would have put it off a little bit longer if it weren't for this conversation. So I'm glad that I finally did that and can now reference it whenever I'm talking about Idris's career and just about the world in general.
For me, it was good to, like I said, I haven't seen this movie since 2015, and it is a hard movie to watch and you kind of need a reason to do it.
Yeah.
And this was the perfect reason. And for me, it's like, I always like to go back and watch movies, be like, hey, did I feel the right way about that? And yeah, I still feel the same way, or if not even more about the movie now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always good to rewatch movies. Sometimes even movies you don't like,
Yep.
So you got to get someone on who doesn't like a movie, but then they watched the movie and then they liked it.
Yeah.
Because that's an interesting conversation. That's like Blade Runner, 2001, Space Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
Both of the movies. I was like, what's going on? The first time I was like, what is this? What is this?
Yeah.
And then I watched it again. I was like, whoa, okay. Y'all was cooking. Okay, this is why people like this stuff. Okay. So, yeah. It's been a first watch for the Beasts of No Nation.
Yep. I enjoyed this. I'm glad that we got to do this. And you'll be on again here very soon, I'm sure. Everyone already knows where
Yeah,
to find you
next
at this
time
point.
we're gonna be. Yeah, you can find me wherever. Cinema
Yeah.
Pursuit. We just talked about The Nice Guys, technically.
Yeah.
So, The Nice Guys, we had a great time talking about that one.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yep.
Great conversation.
We had a good time with that. Until next time, I'll see y'all later. Bye.
Bye.